Honorable President Dr. Kulkarni, respected Chief Guest Dr. Pankaj Chande, respected President Mr. Milind Kekari of the Alumni Association, alumni members of the Triskanda Vedanga Mahavidyalaya, the Alumni Association Secretary Srimati Kirti Patil, astrology scholars, enthusiasts, students, and my esteemed scholar friend Dr. A.V. Ram Mohandas, it is with a sense of humility that I greet you all this morning. We have just listened to a very scintillating presentation by Dr. Pankaj Chande, and I think therefore it can substitute for my keynote address. It is the ancient science of Jyotisha that has brought us here together today, a science of immense potential as a tool of foreknowledge, and which, I am deeply pained to say, lies neglected in our educational systems, dictated largely by a colonial hangover. However, I note with happiness institutions such as Triskanda Vedanga Mahavidyalaya have kept the torch of Jyotisha burning brightly with countless students qualifying in its graduate and postgraduate courses, as also taking up doctoral studies in this science. As Dr. Pankaj Chande said, there has been a lot of criticism, and it continues, especially from some so-called scientists. But I'll not take up that subject today, because all of these scientists who comment on astrology do not even know the ABC of astrology. They do not even know what astrology is. They make up their own definition of astrology and then try to prove it wrong. So how can it affect astrology? Anyway, that is not my topic for today. Jyotisha, one of the oldest sciences known to mankind, is still very much in its infancy in terms of its explored potential. In its simplest form, it is known as Jyotisha. In fact, the term astrology does not do justice to the body of knowledge known as Jyotisha, which is much, much deeper than the astrologos as it was known to the Greeks, and which has very limited connotation. Jyotisha, the better term to use for this body of knowledge, is derived from the Sanskrit word Jyoti, which means light. Jyoti being light, Jyotisha can be understood as that science which sheds light on areas of life to which you do not have access otherwise. Jyotisha is the science of light, I repeat, and light being radiation, it is the science of radiation, of planetary and celestial radiation, and its correspondence and connection with human affairs. Astrology is also known as Kala Gnana and Kala Vidana, or the science of time. It is the study of Kala Purusha, time personified as the zodiac. Though modern science has made great strides in different fields, it is only astrology, even in the present century, which helps one understand the quality of time. Just show me one other science which helps you understand the quality of time. There is no modern science that can equate with Jyotisha in this regard. Now, what is time? Time, as we all know, is the canvas on which life flows. And what is life? Life is nothing but a sequence or series of events or situations drawn onto the canvas of time. It is in time creation begins, it is in time creation continues, and it is in time that creation rests and finally dissolves. Take away time, and the events have nowhere to stand upon. Creation itself would collapse. Therefore, time is the essence, it is the substratum of all existence. Time being so important, modern science so far has not even thought it fit to work at understanding its quality. What exactly does quality of time mean? I shall give you two simple examples. What was the quality of time on January 26, 2001 at about 8 a.m. in Bhuj in Gujarat when a devastating earthquake killed thousands of people? Or what was the quality of time on September 11, 2001 at about 9:30 a.m. in New York when the World Trade Center was blasted by terrorists? For those not initiated into Jyotisha, each moment of time may appear to be like any other, but a critical examination will show you that these moments of time, whether at Bhuj or New York, were totally different from any other moments of the decade. These points of time had a unique quality about them, the quality of destruction on a massive scale. I'm sure many of you, when in trouble or difficulty, would have said, "My time is not good." This is a concept like "Meri time achi nahi." This is a concept that is universal in Indian culture. It is such a commonplace colloquial expression peculiar to India. But in the West, such a concept is totally unknown. We in India, when we utter these simple words, are in fact expressing a great scientific truth that was known only to our country. And what is this scientific truth? Listen carefully. Whatever is born or done this moment of time has the qualities of this moment of time alone. I repeat, whatever is born or done this moment of time has the qualities of this moment of time alone. In other words, each moment of time is unique in itself. Each moment of time has qualities that are unique to it. We all know about quantification of time, dividing time into minutes, seconds, years, decades, etc. But qualifying time or understanding the quality of time is the unique knowledge of ancient India. This science of understanding the quality of time is Jyotisha. And how do we go about that? 1 second. Ago, the time at which the earthquake struck, Saturn and Jupiter, Shani and Guru, two major factors as defined in Jyotisha, turned retrograde from direct motion within the very short period of 24 hours, which is a very rare celestial phenomenon. Go back to New York on September 11, 2001. Mars and Rahu, two destructive elements as defined in Jyotisha, were moving towards an exact opposition when diabolic violence rocked the American nation. Therefore, what we can understand from these two cases is how the quality of time is colored or defined by planetary factors. Understanding the planetary movements and tracing a pattern in them which helps one understand the quality of time is what astrology is all about. Talking of time, the last 100 years especially have seen far-reaching changes of a significant nature. Some of these changes have been good, some have worked to help humanity, and others have tended to push man to the brink of self-destruction. Astrology or Jyotisha has also been a happening event of the last 100 years or so, a far-reaching event of the 20th century, and as important and in some ways maybe even more important than any other was my father Dr. Raman's crusade for Jyotisha, with its origins in our country but inundating Western shores and engaging the attention of serious thinkers there. And before Dr. Raman, it was his grandfather, Professor B. Surya Narayana Rao, who ventured into astrological journalism in English for the first time in India in 1896, when he started the astrological magazine, which now appears as Modern Astrology. His pioneering work in astrology was continued and given further momentum by Dr. Raman. Dr. Raman, whose name today is synonymous with astrology the world over, not only took Jyotisha to the West and the rest of the world, but more importantly, he revived and rejuvenated the science in the country of its origin, creating new respect for it. Posterity alone will recognize Dr. Rama's great contribution to the revival and the demystification of Jyotisha in modern India. If today astrology is gaining momentum as a subject of serious academic pursuit, the credit should in unequivocal terms go to Dr. Raman, who may rightly be described as the father of modern astrology. And if today we have here such a gathering of the cream of astrology scholarship and educated public interested in exploring Jyotisha, I may not be wrong in attributing this intellectual interest in the subject to the lifelong efforts of my revered father, Dr. Raman. Many people do not even know what Jyotisha is, though they are quick to condemn it. Wherever I go, when people learn that I'm associated with astrology, they put up their hand and say, "Can you tell me my astrology?" What does that mean? It doesn't make sense at all. And they're supposed to be MDs, MBBS, doctorates in other subjects. There is so much ignorance concerning astrology simply because it has not been included in the educational system of the country. And also, many people, when they learn I'm into astrology, they say, "I don't believe in astrology," as if it's an earth-shaking belief that they have. This is a matter of personal opinion, and as everyone knows, personal opinions do not make for science. A better and definitely more modest, mature, and decent way to question astrology would be to ask, "What is astrology? I do not understand it." Such an approach shows an open mind and a willingness to understand astrology. But then no critic of astrology and so-called rationalist has an open mind. It is expecting too much from them because they have shut their minds to truth. In fact, there are lots of instances where I have countered rationalists and all with, blasting their stupid arguments. But this is not the right occasion to go into all those details, including Professor Narlekar, who did not know even the ABC of astrology when he condemned it. Jyotisha is often confused with newspaper forecasts by the majority of people. This is especially true of the present generation because they have no idea of its depth and profundity as well as its scientific foundations. They have never been properly introduced to Jyotisha, though they may be familiar with criticism against Jyotisha. Once there was a conference organized by my father, Dr. Raman, and then there was a press meet preceding the conference, and one of the press people, he said, "How can astrology be science? There are so many ainamshas." So the press was also invited to the conference, and this journalist, he said, "How can astrology be science? There are so many ainamshas in it." One fellow astrologer, instead of defending astrology, he said, "Yes, there are so many so many ainamshas in astrology." So I told him, "I can explain to you, but tell me what is ainamsha." He didn't even know what it was, but he was already questioning it. And then I said, "I can give you an answer and tell you what ainamsha is, but will you be able to understand it?" At this, he said, "Just 1 minute, I'll be back in a few minutes," and he disappeared from the scene. So lots of instances like that I have encountered. Now, what is Jyotisha then? All ancient and classical works on Jyotisha are very clear in stating its content. Siddhanta Samhita Horarupam Skandatrayatmakam Vedasya Nirmalam Chakshuhu Jyotish Shastram Manuttamam. Jyotisha or astrology comprises of three branches, Siddhanta, Samhita and Hora. Now Siddhanta is Ganita or mathematics and includes Gola or spherical astronomy. Samhita or mundane astrology deals with planetary movements and terrestrial phenomena where collective destinies are involved, like national and international affairs, agriculture, rainfall, earthquakes, tsunamis, natural disasters, etc. And the last branch is Hora or predictive astrology, which deals with planetary movements and individual lives. It is subdivided into Jataka based on birth time, Prashna based on question time, and Muhurta, where a point of time is selected as good based on planetary parameters. Ancient Indians had made great strides in Jyotisha, which, as I said, includes Ganita and Gola or astronomy. In fact, all ancient astronomers, without exception, were also astrologers, and they had no inferiority complex about that. The spherical shape of the earth, gravitation, astronomical phenomena of eclipses, all these were known to ancient Indian Jyotishis thousands of years before Europe woke up to anything remotely connected with science. When Europe was saying, if you walk to the edge of the earth, you will fall off into space, ancient Indian Jyotishis, such as Lalacharya, 1200 years ago, Aryabhatta, 499 AD, Bhaskaracharya, 11th century, all preceding these European explorers, they were cognizant of the heliocentricity of the solar system, and they were talking of gravitation, the spherical shape of the earth, working out eclipse times and other celestial phenomena. For instance, in Surya Siddhanta, it says, Sarvatraiva mahi gole swasthanam uparistitam anyante keyate gole tasya kvardam kvapyadaha. Everywhere on the surface of the earth, people suppose their own place to be on top, higher than that of others, because this globe is suspended in space. Where would there be an upper or a lower side to it? Even in the 15th century, when Columbus went in search of new lands, his team of explorers was afraid that when they reached the edge of the earth, they would fall off into a precipice. But according to Bhaskara, who preceded Columbus by almost 4 centuries, in his Siddhanta Shiromani, he says, Akrushti Shaktischa Mahitayayat Swastam Guru Swabhimukam Swashaktya Akrushyate Tat Patitiva Bhati Samantat Kva Patityam Khe. The earth attracts whatever solid particles are in space by her own force of attraction. All these objects, subject to this attractional force, fall to the earth. Due to the equal force of attraction among all the celestial bodies, where can each among them fall? He's talking about gravitation. And Bhaskaracharya also had definite ideas of gravitation when he said, Akrushya Shaktischa Mahitayayat. The earth has the inherent property of gravitation. Akrushyate tat patitiva bhati. When an object is thrown up, it appears to fall, but the actual fact is it is being attracted to the center of the earth. Now coming to the present, astrology has seen phenomenal growth over the last 6 decades. especially after Dr. B.V. Raman arrived on the scene. The application of astrology now includes such important areas as political developments, earthquake prediction, volcanoes, cyclones, monsoon, and weather prediction, public health, medical diagnosis and prognosis, surgery, accidents, aerial mishaps, marriage counseling, career counseling. In fact, if a chart shows a medical career, we can even find out the area of specialization like pediatrics, cardiology, oncology, optics, psychiatry, etc., etc. Cesarean section births, test tube babies, whether medically assisted conception will work or not, and even terrorist attacks and many other contemporary topics, which means astrology, though one of the oldest sciences known to mankind, has been able to keep pace with and adapt to changes in society. Many of these topics were unknown when astrology rules were first enunciated, and even as late as in the early half of the 20th century. For example, setting fire to an enemy's property, like fields, his house, or go down, was a common form of attacking the enemy and destroying him or taking revenge on him in olden days. There are combinations in classical texts for loss through such attacks. For example, according to Jataka Tattva, Koshe Kujayartha Nashogni Chauraditaha. That is, if Mars is in the second house, one will lose money through fire, thieves, etc. Now, fire can include bomb explosions. Thieves can include terrorists, militants, insurgents. It all depends on how judiciously we interpret and adopt these principles. Again, there's another sloka in Jataka Tattva, according to which if the Lord of the fourth house occupy his depression, inimical sign, or be eclipsed, or be between malefics, or aspected by malefics, the natives' lands will be destroyed or lost. Can't we apply this to cases where houses are being demolished in road widening work in cities and in city development projects? So whatever you have now can also be identified in astrological principles. So today the same act of setting fire is still there, but has only changed form. The substance is the same, the form is different. We have bombs doing the same, but in a more explosive and cruel manner. So the combinations as for setting fire would apply, but maybe in a stronger way due to the different strengths of the planets involved. You know, Mars is always associated with fire, anger, and violence. Rahu is associated with incendiarism and explosions. So these planets become highly significant in judging bomb attacks and terrorist strikes, a phenomenon apparently of the last 2 or 3 decades. So using the Samhita principles, we can identify the role of Mars, Rahu, and even Saturn in terrorist attacks and take suitable precautions for the countries involved. In fact, I was able to anticipate editorially in the January 2001 issue, which was out in November 2000, the September 11 terrorist strikes on the World Trade Center in New York based on the impending Mars-Rahu opposition of September 2001. This was nearly 11 months in advance of the horrific strikes. Such insights from astrology make this ancient science an invaluable tool of foreknowledge when preventive measures can be put into place. Likewise, some years ago, when the Prime Minister was to address a meeting in Bihar, Gandhi Maidan, based on planetary position, basically Mars and Rahu, I had hinted there would be violence directed at the Prime Minister. They had taken suitable precautions, And just as the meeting came to a conclusion and the Prime Minister walked out of the Gandhi Maidan, there was a huge explosion in the same field, which luckily did not hurt the Prime Minister because astrology had come to their rescue. Now, one of the commonly asked questions of astrology is, how can planets which are so far removed from the Earth affect terrestrial affairs? This is one common question, favorite question of Kushwant Singh of Illustrated Weekly and Jayant Narlikar of Bombay Atomic Research Center. Whenever they want to condemn astrology, they will shoot this question at astrologers. But this question appears to be very scientific, but if you examine it closely, you will find it is quite unbecoming of anyone who claims to have a scientific temper. Why? I'm more comfortable standing. No. Yeah. In science, facts precede theories. First you have the facts, and then try to build a hypothesis on the basis of the available facts. That is, for example, apples fall to the ground. Is that a fact or not? Everyone seems confused. Yes or no? Likewise, unsupported objects and human bodies also fall to the ground. If you throw something down a balcony, it does not go up into the sky, it comes down and hits the ground. These are all facts which nobody can deny. Likewise, planets move around their primaries in accordance with Kepler's laws of motion. These are all facts which no one can dispute. Keeping all these facts before him, Newton began his investigations and he came up with his laws of gravitation, according to which there is a force of mutual attraction between material bodies. We do not know if Newton was right, because when Einstein came on the scene some years later, he explained the same phenomenon in terms of curvature of space in the proximity of the material object. We do not know if Einstein was right. How can the same phenomenon, in this case, the fact of falling bodies, have two different theories? And it is always possible a more brilliant scientist may arrive on the scene some years hence and come up with a more brilliant theory. But the point I'm trying to make, the point I'm trying to emphasize is whatever the theory, the fact of falling bodies remains. In other words, you cannot say just because there is no explanation for it, you cannot conclude apples don't fall to the ground. First, the facts must be accepted. Then only can one work on the theories to explain those facts. Similarly, in astrology, whatever the theory, the facts of astrology are there for all to see. We may not have an explanation, but if a fact keeps repeating over and over again in hundreds of cases, you cannot say it does not exist at all. It cannot be whisked away. The task of a scientist is not to ask idle hypothetical questions, but to explain admitted facts. Now, what are the facts of Jyotisha? Simply that celestial factors in different parts of the universe are interlinked. Whatever happens in one part of the universe has a repercussion elsewhere in the cosmos. And the cosmos for us on the Earth begins with the solar system and its members, the Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, or the Navagrahas. That is, astrology is the study of planetary movements and their connection with terrestrial happenings. It is the study of equations between what goes on in the skies and what happens on Earth. It is the study of equations between man and planet. Let me give you one or two simple examples. Take a chart where you have Jupiter in the ascendant. When such a person enters a group of people in animated conversation, you will find a hush may fall over the group. They may rise from their seats as if out of respect for this man. He may not be a VIP, he may not be a politician, he may not be a celebrity, but there is something in his appearance or in his carriage that commands respect. The equation in such a case would be ascendant plus Jupiter as respect. Likewise, take the case of a person who has Mars in the ascendant. When such a person joins a group of people in animated conversation, the first thing he says may spark off a controversy. It may set off an argument. It may create tension amongst the group. The equation in such a case would be ascendant plus Mars equals anger, resentment, tension. Take 100 charts with this combination and you have the facts of astrology. Likewise, moving on to Samhita principles, you will find all earthquakes are generally concentrated around eclipse time, new and full moon days, and as also Jupiter-Saturn movements. And also, you can also check on the weather. Whenever the sun enters Bharini and Kritika nakshatras, what are these nakshatras called? Agni nakshatras, right? Whenever the sun enters Bharini, the temperature goes up. And when it enters Kritika, it becomes even hotter. But the moment when sun enters Rohini, the heat goes down and the weather turns a little more pleasant. Likewise, when the sun enters Aridra nakshatra, the winds begin to blow with force. You can collect the data for 100 years from the meteorological department and verify these facts of astrology for yourself. Simply put, the facts of astrology are the equations between man and graha. These are indisputable facts which have been verified over and over again in the lives of countless generations in India. Because we cannot explain the connection between man and planet, we cannot say there is no connection at all. The task of a scientist is not to ask idle hypothetical questions, but to explain admitted facts. For example, gravity is there. But if you ask why, there is no answer. Why does the earth have gravitational force? Nobody knows the answer, but you cannot deny the fact it has gravitational force. Once there was a talk by Jayant Narlikar, and at question time, he was talking on astronomy, but he unfortunately moved into astrology also, a subject which he proved he knew nothing about. I said, what causes lightning? I asked him. I was in the audience. He said, a change in the atmospheric pressure. I said, what causes this change in atmospheric pressure? Then he looked at the roof, he looked at the walls, he looked at this wall and that wall, and now I think it's time for us to wind up, he said. So this is the kind of scientists we have. Coming to the question of the great distance of the planets from the Earth, distance is not really relevant. According to the mathematical theory of resonance, if a system has a natural frequency equal to the frequency of an external force, then the system will have a large response to that force. But its response to forces vibrating at any other frequencies, even if close to it, will be so minute it can be ignored. This is the whole basis of radio and television systems. Are we not able to identify radio waves from remote stars? This is not because of distance, but frequency. We are not able to hear or see what is happening outside of this hall, but we can see what is happening in Gaza because we are tuned into the right frequency. Likewise, the distances of the planets from the Earth are irrelevant. What matters is the frequency of the bodies involved. There's another question that is shot at astrologers, or rather at astrology. Why only Navagrahas or 9 grahas is another question that is often asked. Not only were the ancients aware of other celestial bodies, but they were quite clear that ours was not the only universe, but there were countless other universes as well. Today, astronomers keep reporting the sighting and discovery of new solar systems as also new galaxies, which was clearly known to the ancient Indian intellectuals or rishis. The term rishi is derived from the root rish, which means to think. So the rishis were not only spiritual giants, they were also great intellectuals. And why would they address God as Akilanda Koti, Brahmanda Nayaka if they were not aware of the existence of innumerable galactic eggs or Brahmandas? The ancients also knew about the existence of other solar systems, for they clearly said, Nana Disha Sapta Suryaha. There are stellar systems or solar systems in different quarters. Sarva Dishanam Surya, Surya, Surya. Suns, suns, and more suns everywhere. Then finally they said, Grahanam Param Kotyaha Mukhyanam Saptaha. Though there are countless planetary bodies, only Sapta or 7 visible grahas are important to us. Now coming to another point, coming to the term planet, there is always criticism. The sun is a star, the moon is a satellite, Rahu and Ketu don't exist. How can they be called planets? The word planet is a loose, inadequate, deficient translation of the term graha. Graha in Sanskrit, in which language you find all astrology literature of the most ancient dates, is derived from the root grahya. What does it mean? Grahya means to grasp, to receive, to accept. And it implies some kind of force of attraction and energy. It can be used in different ways to connote different ideas of energy or force. For example, if you use it as anugraha, it means, broadly speaking, to bless. Blessing, in its simplest form, implies favorable or positive flow of energy. Avagraha, to resist, energy that deflects like the like poles of a magnet repelling each other. Nigraha, to arrest, inhibit, control, or interceptive energy. Parigraha, to assist, to receive energy that attracts. Vigraha, to quarrel, to fight, or obstructive energy. Sabhagraha, to collect, assemble some total or resultant energy or force. Therefore, a graha in astrology is not the same as planet, but may be defined as a celestial body or a geometrical point with a field of force. In that sense, the sun, a star in modern astronomy, the moon, a satellite, Rahu and Ketu, which have no existence, they have no physical mass, and are the points of intersection of the orbits of the sun and the moon around the earth, are all grahas. When one equates planet with the term graha, the fault is not in astrology, but in the translation. Though heliocentricity was known to ancient Indians, geocentric longitudes were considered in horoscopy because we are on Earth and this is only a frame of reference. In any temple, anywhere in the country, there is always a corner set aside for the Navagrahas. And you will find the sun is always placed at the center and not the earth. Why would they do it if they were not aware of the heliocentricity of the solar system? I'll not take much of your time except to recount an interesting account related to a rationalist. This rationalist, he threw a challenge saying, what will you do if a child is born on Mars? Can you apply astrology to it? So some astrologers, they went about trying to find answers to it and all, but this arrogant critic of astrology, he just scoffed at them. I said, it's fine, you have thrown a challenge, but we also have our conditions. So first you go to Mars, set up a maternity home there, get someone to deliver a child there, then note down the Martian standard time and also the Martian standard longitudes, east and north. Give me all these details. And since we have a lot of work to do, I need a team to assist me, so fund my team also. Then I'll take up your challenge. This rationalist had no answer. And we must realize astrology applies, as given in Parashari books, applies only to births on earth. In fact, Brith Parashara Hora is in the form of a dialogue between the master Parashara and the disciple Maitreya. In chapter 1, Maitreya, the disciple, is asking his guru, Katamasya hi vishvasya prabhavottalayo bhaved nabastayi grahanancha bhumist praninamidha. How does creation and dissolution of the universe take place? What is the connection between the celestial bodies in the sky, Nabastayi Grahanancha, and life forms on earth, Bhumista Praninamitaha? What follows next is Parashara's exposition of predictive astrology, the connection between celestial bodies orbiting the skies, and remember, life forms on earth. Bhumista Praninamitaha. All life forms on earth, not just human, but it is confined to forms on earth. This is the definition of astrology. So if that rationalist is going to talk about astrology and Mars, he has to come up with his own theory of astrology or whatever it is, and then proceed. So a lot of nonsensical questions come from these rationalists, but we cannot pay any attention to them. And they're always throwing challenges because they don't have any better business to do. And in another case, the rationalist, a Bangalore chemistry professor or someone like that, he said, what was it? You have to prove astrology is science. Do all the buses that start in Rahu column meet with accidents? I said, sir, you're assuming things. First of all, you give me the source where it says Rahu column and accidents, buses starting in Rahu column meet with accidents. You make up your own definition of astrology, of Rahu column, and then proceed to decry astrology. So I said, you please come with your facts, proper facts, and also don't assume to be an astrology science certifying authority. We don't recognize your authority at all. That was it. So let us remember, astrology is ancient India's intellectual heritage and a gift to humanity. Let us not disregard this ancient science which aims at loka kalyana, or the welfare of humanity. Not even national welfare, but of the whole world. Where do you find such broadness of mind in any other culture? Only in India we have that kind of thinking. Thank you for your patient hearing.